UFC 288 goes down this weekend, headlined by Aljamain Sterling and Henry Cejudo. Here are my quick pick predictions for the full card. Starting with the early prelim opener of Johnny Munoz Jr. versus Daniel Santos. Daniel Santos trains out of Shootbox Diego Lima with former lightweight champion Charles Oliveira. He's 1-1 in the UFC so far. He lost his debut to Julio Arce, and then he came back to get a second round KO win over John Castaneda in his second fight. Johnny Munoz Jr. is 2-2 in the UFC. He's got wins over Jamie Simmons and Ludovic Sholinyan. His losses were to Nate Maness, and then he was finished by Tony Gravely. I think for this one, I'm gonna have to go with Daniel Santos to get the win here. This then takes us on to Joseph Holmes versus Claudio Ribeiro. Joseph Holmes has a 100% finish rate. He has 6 submissions and 2 KOs. He's coming off a submission loss to Jung Young Park, and he's 1-2 in the UFC so far. Claudio also has 100% finish rate. He has 10 KOs. He lost his UFC debut via KO to Abdul Razak Al Hassan. I think we're in for a really good fight here. Both of these guys have a 100% finish rate. I'm gonna have to go with Claudio Ribeiro to get the win. This takes us on to Rafael Estevam versus Zhalgas Zhumagulov. Estevam is undefeated at 11-0. This is going to be his UFC debut. He earned his contract back on Dana White's Contender Series, getting a second round KO. Zhalgas is 1-5 in his last 6 fights, but arguably could be 4-2. He was subject to some very questionable judging decisions. He lost 3 split decisions that he arguably should have won. 1 to Charles Johnson, 1 to Jeff Molina, and 1 to Julian Paiva. So the poor guy can't catch a break. All of that being said, I am going to take Estevam to get the win here. This takes us on to Phil Hawes versus Ikram Aliskerov. Phil Hawes is 3-2 in his last 5 fights with wins over Deron Wynn, Kyle Dorcas, and Nazadim Imavov. His losses were a KO loss to Chris Curtis, and then last time out he was brutally finished by Roman Dolidze. Aliskerov is 13-1, and that one loss on his record came back in 2019 to Khamzat Chimaev. Before Gilbert Burns, Aliskerov was Khamzat's toughest test. Khamzat has said before that Aliskerov should be in the UFC, and here he is. After earning his contract with Dana White's Contender Series, getting a first round submission, he's finally in the UFC and about to make his debut. I can't wait for this fight. I'm gonna have to take Aliskerov to get it done here via finish. This takes us on to Braxton Smith versus Parker Porter. Braxton is making his UFC debut here. He has 100% finish rate, 5 KOs. The one loss on his record came all the way back in 2014 to Chase Sherman. He took 8 years off after this loss and returned in 2022, and he's racked up 5 KO wins since. Parker Porter, I do not rate at all. He's not even dangerous as a heavyweight. His last 3 wins were all via decision. He's been finished in his last 2 fights. He got demolished by Jelton Almeida, and then he was finished in the first round by Justin Taffer. For this one, I'm gonna have to go with Braxton Smith getting it done here via finish. This takes us on to Marina Rodriguez versus Virna Jandiroba. We haven't seen Rodriguez since she was TKO'd by Amanda Lemos last November. Before that, she was on a 4-fight win streak with wins over Yan Mackenzie Dern, Amanda Ribas, and Michelle Waterson Gomez. Virna, you may recognize from Adam Sandler's Mr. Deeds, and also from Adam Sandler's The Waterboy. Virna is 3-2 in the last 5 fights. Her losses coming to Mackenzie Dern and Amanda Ribas. It seems like every time she takes that step up in competition, she loses. And I think Marina is that step up, having wins over Mackenzie Dern and Amanda Ribas, who Virna lost to. I'm gonna take Marina Rodriguez to get the win here. Then we have Chaos Williams versus Rolando Bedoya. Williams is 3-2 in his last 5. His losses were to Randy Brown, and then a split decision loss to Mikel Pereira. He's got wins over fighters like Abdul Razak Al Hassan and Matthew Semmelsberger. Bedoya is on a 10-fight win streak and is going to be making his UFC debut here. For this one, I am going to take Chaos Williams to get the job done. Then we have Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Devin Clark. Kennedy is on a 2-fight win streak, knocking out Ion Cutelaba and Carl Robertson. Devin is 2-3 in his last 5, being finished by Anthony Smith and Asmat Murzakanov. For this one, I am going to take Kennedy Nzechukwu to get it done by a finish. This takes us on to Drew Dober versus Matt Frevola. Drew Dober has just broke into the top 15. He's on great form. In his last 3 fights, he's got finishes over Terrence McKinney, Rafael Alves, and Bobby Green. Frevola is 3-2 in his last 5, with finish wins over Gennaro Valdez, and then last time he knocked out the undefeated Ottoman Azaitar. I can't wait for this fight. I'm going to take Drew Dober to get the win. This takes us on to Kron Gracie versus Charles Jourdain. We haven't seen Gracie since he lost a decision to Cub Swanson 3.5 years ago. That's the only loss on his record. He's got a record of 5-1. Jourdain is on a 2-fight skid, last time losing to Nathaniel Wood, and then before that, Shane Burgos. Jourdain has a record of 13-6, and the only time he's been finished in his career was when Julian Erosa submitted him with a Darce choke. Jourdain is a black belt. I know Gracie is a very highly accredited jiu-jitsu practitioner, goes without saying, having the last name Gracie. I am going to take Charles Jourdain to get the win here. Then we have Movsar Evloev versus Diego Lopes. This was meant to be Movsar versus Bryce Mitchell. Unfortunately, Bryce Mitchell has hurt his back and has had to pull out, which I'm absolutely gutted about. I was really looking forward to this fight. Movsar is 16-0. We haven't seen him since he beat Dan Ige last year. He had some knee surgery and he's been recovering, and he is 6-0 in the UFC so far. Diego Lopes is stepping in here on stupidly short notice. He has got finish wins in his last 2 fights, and he's got a record of 20-5. He's a very talented jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's got a black belt and 11 submission wins on his record. I think Movsar is a tough test for anybody that's had a 12-week camp, let alone somebody that's stepping in on 4 or 5 days notice. So I'm going to take Movsar to get the win. This takes us on to Jessica Andrade versus Xiaonan Yan. I'm just going to call her Yan. This takes us on to Jessica Andrade versus Yan. Andrade, the former champion, is 3-2 in her last 5. The losses came to Valentina Shevchenko and then last time to Erin Blanchfield, but she did take the Blanchfield fight on about a week's notice. Andrade has 9 KOs and 8 submissions, so goes without saying she's very dangerous no matter where the fight takes place. Yan is 3-2 in her last 5. Her losses came to Marina Rodriguez and Carla Esparza, and then last time out she beat Mackenzie Dern in a 5-round main event. I am going to have to take the former champion Jessica Andrade to get the win. This takes us on to our co-main event, Belal Muhammad versus Gilbert Burns. This was meant to be Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush, but Oliveira had to pull out. Belal last time out TKO'd the undefeated Sean Brady. He's undefeated in his last 9. He's not lost a fight since January 2019. Gilbert Burns is having a very active year. We're only in May and this is his 3rd fight. January, he was in UFC 283 when he submitted Neil Magny, and then last month he was in UFC 287 when he beat George Masvidal. I've changed my mind a lot on this one, but I'm gonna go with the underdog, Belal Muhammad. This takes us to our main event, Aljamain Sterling versus Henry Cejudo for the bantamweight title. This is Aljamain's 3rd title defense. The first 2 were against TJ Dillashaw and Peter Yan. Aljo's undefeated in his last 8 with finishes in 3 of them. Henry Cejudo is the former flyweight and bantamweight champion, as well as a 2008 Olympic gold medalist. Henry hasn't fought since he TKO'd Dominic Cruz in May of 2020, so he hasn't fought in 3 years. You can't ever count Henry out, but I am going to take Aljamain Sterling to get the win. How do you guys see the main event going down? Which fight are you looking forward to most? Please comment down below and let me know, and subscribe if you enjoy MMA content. Thank you so much.